It is Rita Johnston here, certified life coach and Reiki practitioner. And today is part 2 of my 3-part series on trauma-informed coaching and Reiki. Earlier this week, part 1, I talked about creating safe space. And today I want to talk about managing your mindset through the transition of change, why that is so important, especially for those that have experienced trauma. And my goal is to leave you today with some insights, some things to look for maybe in yourself and maybe with those that you serve and may have had a traumatic experience. So we will go ahead and jump right in. So change. Change is one of those things that we can almost guarantee is going to happen. It's just a part of life, like dying and paying taxes. And many of us have a hard time with change as it is, but for those that have experienced trauma, change can be extremely overwhelming. It can take your breath away. It can cause spinning and a negative cycle. So change can be huge for those that have experienced trauma, and it's really, really important to manage the mindset throughout the process of change. And one of the first steps to actually recovering from trauma is being aware and being familiar with the different sensations that are going on in the body. And one of the ways to do that is managing the mindset, helping to connect with what's going on outside with what's going on inside and how they correlate, how they connect. So first and foremost, managing mindset, it's important to show up. Okay, it's important to show up mentally, it's important to show up physically, emotionally, and it may sound like a no-brainer, like duh, but I cannot stress enough, it's really important to be where you are. And those that have experienced trauma may have a harder time showing up than those that have. They might have a hard time just showing up for life in general, let alone showing up and gaining momentum to move forward and change their life. And us service providers, quite honestly, we're no different. Many of us have experienced our own trauma. So when working with a client, we may not realize that we're being triggered. We may not realize that the client has gone through a similar experience that we've gone through, and how that is showing up in our body. We may not realize that we're bringing our own stuff into the experience, and vice versa. The client may not even realize that they've taken on our stuff. So it's highly important to show up and check in and say, how are you showing up? How am I showing up today? Is this my stuff? Is this your stuff? Hey, Julie. Good to see you on. Next is finding your own voice. Finding your own voice versus looking for someone to give you the answers. This is really important through the transition of change. Again, especially for those that have experienced trauma, because this may be the first time that they are claiming their power. This may be the first time for many trauma survivors that they are feeling empowered. They're feeling in charge of their life. This may be the first time that they are saying some of these things. They're claiming their life. They're saying what it was that they want. So helping them connect with those feelings, connect with that empowerment and how it is showing up. How does it feel to take control of your life? Where is that showing up in your body? How does it, can you touch it? Can you smell it? Can you feel it? Is it showing up in your neck? Is it showing up in your gut? So just really helping the client check in what's showing up for you, what is going on in your outside world, and how is that connected, and how does that make you feel? Which leads me into my next point, which is acknowledgement. Huge. Acknowledge. Personally, I don't think that I think I said this in part 1, but I don't think that we do enough acknowledgement in the world. Again, trauma survivors, this may be the first time we're saying these things. You know, it may be really, really huge to take control of our life and to take our life back and to take our choices back. So acknowledging these things and helping manage mindset through the change, through the process, through, quite honestly, we might piss some people off because we're making decisions for us versus for them. So acknowledging the forward movement, huge, 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 and helping to manage the mindset. And knowing the difference between someone being stubborn versus someone just not wanting to be uncomfortable, or someone being stubborn and not wanting to be uncomfortable and not wanting to stretch themselves versus someone that is being triggered. So watching for behaviors and reactions, not being afraid to ask those tough questions, not being afraid to ask, what's going on? How does it feel? How is it showing up for you? Where do you feel it? Does it look like anything? Does it remind you of anything? Again, pulling out these metaphors. And again, just knowing the difference, not being afraid to push, but also knowing where that boundary is of pushing versus sending someone into a trigger. So being aware of that boundary and that fine line. And it's also, I believe, important to